Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. And of course, it is the day after the Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby decider. On Saturday night, we saw the other Kobe crowned the 2023 Derby champion, giving the O'Donnell family a sixth. Yes, sixth Irish Derby. Matt O'Donnell, the late great Matt O'Donnell, trained three Derby winners. His wife Frances trained the Derby winner in 2012, Skywalker Puma, and now Jennifer O'Donnell has trained her second Derby champion, the other Kobe, emulating his brother, Born Warrior, by making every inch to win in dramatic fashion at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. A huge crowd present, a great night for Greyhound racing, an unbelievable atmosphere. And I am here to discuss it with the exiled dub Tommy Lyons and our man on the ground, Damien Lonergan, who wasn't at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. I'm sure he was missing it for a very important reason. Damien, you were on the stag.
Business, more business. We'll just call it business. But networking, that's what I was doing. Networking.
Portugal. Is there a big greyhound racing scene in Portugal?
I said beforehand, I was known as, oh, you're in Fortunes, mate, aren't you? That was the biggest insult I've got in my whole life. My whole life. Didn't know my name, but knew
who,
it
are
was
you, who are you telling?
a
I wouldn't call us mates. Tommy Lyons, you were watching on. How did Shelbourne Park come across on the television?
Good, yeah, very good. And you know what? It was building to an open final, a lot of opinions, a lot of diverse opinion on the final, which is what you want. And it turned out to be a fantastic race. I have a couple of concerns, but that'll be for later on, maybe.
Yeah. The one thing you want with a big final is for a dog to go out and win it. And that's exactly what the other Kobe did. Two or three dogs ran remarkable races in defeat. But in truth, this was a contest that was over pretty early. Despite the best efforts of Buckles, Crystal and Ben's Teddy, the other Kobe went out, seized his opportunity, and becomes the fastest Derby winner of all time. Tommy, that's what you need when you have a dog in the Derby final.
That's what you need. I mean, it's a brilliant training performance because you have to bring a greyhound to peak. Jennifer has brought the dog along brilliantly through the competition, and he was superb in the quarterfinals. Not maybe as impressive last week and or in the semi-finals, but then back to his very, very best the other night with a brilliant show of early pace. And even Jennifer, in fairness to her, said it straight after the race. And sometimes when you get caught on the mic straight after the race, you're nearly not thinking clearly. You're after winning the Derby final. But she said it straight away. Needed to do everything the way he did it. Absolutely and utterly needed to do everything 100% right. It's remarkable. It's like 29:11. If that clock had come up 29:41:51, I would have said, yeah, I would have believed it. I wouldn't have questioned it for a second. Hard to believe at 29:11. I mean, Bacchus Crystal did a time, finished second and did a time faster than any Greyhound Derby winner has ever done in a final. Yeah, and Ben Teddy did 29:21 and was beaten into third place. It's just it was I don't know I couldn't believe the time, but in fairness, as I said, I would just give all the credit. All the credit has to go to O'Donnell. They've done a fantastic job with that greyhound to peak him the way he did. Even in the early rounds, after what happened last year, there's always a fear that something like that can happen if an early paced dog isn't at 100% right throughout the competition. But they just handled him so well. It's a thoroughly deserved victory.
Damien, from a Boyle Sports point of view, I'm sure there was plenty of betting through the Derby. The likes of Deladdy Da and Coulivan Hoffa going out in the semi-finals helped you. But I'd say the other Kobe was largely a good result.
he was, in fairness, no, he definitely was a good result, like, because he was sort of a dog that he promised so much last year, but just didn't really deliver like Born Warrior did. But he just matured. I hope it happens to me someday that I do mature as well. Like,
Doubt
he's
it.
just, but like he's a totally different dog, isn't he? This year, like he's just I thought he was flawless. It was like
Jennifer, in fairness to her, has always been, you know, like she couldn't say enough about this dog. Like she spoke in glowing terms about this dog earlier and longer, perhaps, than she did of Born Warrior. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying she thinks he's a better dog, but I think she's always had belief in this greyhound in particular. It was early last year we spoke about him in the likes of the Kirby Memorial. He was taken out of the Kirby Memorial when looking at a leading player. Obviously back then he was diving for the fence every opportunity he got, and sometimes even when the opportunity wasn't there, he was diving in. But you've used the term matured into a proper greyhound, and here we are. Like, he won the Winter Racing Festival the back end of last year, and he's had a slow enough campaign this year, but to peak him at the right night, like, that's a skill in itself.
like that's he was just prepared so well for the Derby. Like you said, like that's probably what you want if you want to win a Derby is you do want racing, but you don't want to be over raced either. You don't want to be coming to the Derby with a load of races behind you and you just coming to the end of the season. Like, this dog was only peaking come the first week of September. It was an unbelievable training performance by Jennifer and Francis and all the team in Killinall. Like, look, you can't beat breeding, can't you not?
Yeah, you sure can't. You can't wait for your bonus now at the Derby as well. A kind Derby means a kind bonus for Damien, I'm sure.
I would have to wait till February. We don't get divorced till February, we don't get February. Like we're just talking there about like Boss Crystal, I'd say how many heats throughout the Derby was there? She would have led in every other heat in the Derby nearly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
1685 to the third bend.
Yeah, it was stunning. It really was stunning.
Unreal.
Tommy, getting back to Born Warrior, but Born Warrior was pretty much the first season Greyhound. It's been largely first season Greyhound. Is this the first proper second season Greyhound we've seen in a while?
And that again goes back to what Damien and I were talking about a minute ago about the handling of the Greyhound, because you don't usually get two chances to win a Derby. Because there's so much can happen in the space of 12 months with a Greyhound, and if they're racing, you have to prepare them, and obviously the Greyhound has to have the right constitution and has to have a little bit of luck along the way to stay injury free, or even a tiny little bit of a setback is enough to knock you out. I mean, we saw a Greyhound getting knocked out of the Derby a bit. Was it undisputed? Maybe 29-40 there, 2-3 rounds ago.
Having set the pace to the second bend that night, the laddie that past her. Yeah, Wayne McCarthy, Paul Prendergast were just absolutely sort of dumbfounded that she didn't get through that night.
Yeah, and she's forgotten about now in most people have forgotten about that she was even part of the Derby, and yet she like desperately unlucky. So you need so much to go right. And that's why the art of the handling of the Greyhound and producing the Greyhound right is so important. And it's why you see experienced handlers coming back and winning the Derby. I think it's one of the in recent memory, it's one of the best training performances, I think. I mean, second season, like we talked about, I said to you a couple of weeks ago, second season Greyhounds do struggle. You don't generally get that second opportunity, and you've got to do it. You've got to handle it sensationally well, and that's what happened with the other Kobe.
Yeah, he was. Look, I suppose on the night he couldn't have been any better. That's the way I see it. Like there wasn't a millimeter left. That's it. Like every ounce was there, and he posted 341. Okay, he has a 338 in this card, but on a Derby final night with the noise and the atmosphere and all that's happening, then to do the 1685 to the third bend, 29:11, as we've alluded to, the fastest Derby winning time of all time. Just a unbelievable performance. Let's talk about the race itself. Damien, I suppose he took the flyer from trap 2. He needed a clear well met. He did that straight away. So already you're in pole position.
Yeah, that was one of the keys to the race, was just clearing trap 1 early. And that was never going to be simple. That was never going to be a foregone conclusion, because we know well met can go up strong as well. And if Dr. Kobe had to miss it slightly at all, he could have been a bit of bother, but he was just electric. He was electrifying. That's what you could say about him.
I know the starting prices are different to what was in the ring at Shelbourne Park. It's more of a industry SP these days, and honestly, you'd want to be Alan Turing or someone to know what the industry prices work out and how they work them out. But obviously, there's exchange prices come into the equation. The other Kobe's returned 3-1. Ben's Teddy 11-4. Now we did state it last week that Ben's Teddy would be disputing favoritism potentially. I didn't think he'd be clear favorite, but he ended up being the 11-4 clear favorite in terms of the SPs. Actually, Teddy Hegarty was speaking to me during the week, and he says, "I hope you and the Exile Dub are right." He says, "I've had a chunks on Ben's Teddy at 4-1 with a view to laying it back on the night," and that's how it happened. He was the one that came in for support. But are you surprised that the other Kobe's returned as big as he was at 3-1?
Honestly, knowing, because remember straight away after the draw went 2-1 the other Kobe. I know those other forms were 6-4. 7-4. Come during the week, then they came out. We went 9-4 and couldn't lay him. There was no money for him. I thought, standout price Derby favorite, get some money. No, there was nothing for him all week. And you can see what, like, from we were 9-2, 4, 7-2, Ben's Teddy. They just kept coming for Ben's Teddy. So like, there's normally one dog every year does come in for support, and this year it was Ben's Teddy. Could I see the other Kobe going off 3-1 or returning 3-1? No. I watched it live in Portugal, but then kind of waking up.
One eye open and one eye closed, was it?
Yeah, but waking up the following morning and said, "Oh, I must have a look at 3-1. Jeez, there's something, something. But I don't know what's happening wrong there. But no, I couldn't believe his SP. I know I know he was a healthy result for us in the day of the race book as well. So, which is very surprising.
Bigger bonus in February. As you can tell, myself and Damien had a lot of carbs yesterday. We had to refuel, shall we say?
Yes.
Anyone that saw me on Saturday night after racing, well, they're more than aware that we enjoy that one. We put a celebratory cherry on top of this derby. I can tell you, Tommy, the other Kobe 3-1. He flashed out. He's a couple, maybe a length in front of Bacchus Crystal on the opening corner. By the second bend, he's almost 3 lengths in front of her, as he has done all through his career. When left alone, he runs the most incredible corner.
He does, because he did increase it to about. I had in my report this morning about 2.5 lengths, and it was four. I'd say shortly after halfway, I'd say it was
Yeah,
four
I,
lengths.
I, I had it sort of down as 3 3/4 on my pause, but yeah, like that is between 3.5 and 4 lengths to the third bend.
Yeah, like it was incredible opening bends, and to get that out of Bacchus Crystal, and then to extend it so readily. Now, obviously the race is back on again from about the third bend, where you can see the Bacchus Crystal is coming back again. I think, you know, I suppose the draw was what concerned us all last week. Looking at it, like we read the market almost precisely, saying you'd have to push out Well Met considerably to lay it. Ben said he was going to come in for support 5-1 straight after the semi final was way too big. And the favorite was too short at 6-4. And even though the fact that once you didn't go off favorite Jody Kobe, it was still ridiculous price at 6-4, considering the draw. I mean, I didn't think Well Met could win the Derby final, but I thought he might have been a potential blocker to the other Kobe. And I think that's where the concern was for people, that they weren't sure that the other Kobe would definitely get in front of him. It took a phenomenal bit of early pace to do that. But then, like, it's like what I said a minute ago before Jennifer saying, he had to do absolutely everything right. And in fact, if he had drifted off, if he had either drifted off at the last bend or stuck to the rails really tightly, Bacchus Crystal might have caught him, because she went to go outside and then checked inside. And it's, I know it's a half a length, which seems like a reasonable margin, but like
But
when
it's a
when
rapidly
you're
diminishing half a length.
it's a rapidly diminishing half length is right at that stage, where the other Kobe's coming to the end of his tether, and that's reasonable. When you're doing 29:11, Bacchus Crystal staying outside, or just going inside from the start might have made some difference to the result. The other Kobe was just literally, you had to be on point, and that's exactly what he was.
Damien laughed or smiled when I said rapidly diminishing. It's a term he's used regularly with me over the years to describe a night we'll never forget, like in 2001, Damien.
Yeah, look. I don't give you often give you confidence, right? The commentary was brilliant, but you never just don't stop trying. Like you're never ever going to beat him, right? You're only going to be ever be second best watching the commentary, all right? You want to get that out there straight away.
I'm happy enough with that. I'm happy enough with that. Bacchus Crystal. Bacchus Crystal, Tommy. She ran her heart out through this derby, 17 weeks the other evening. To even get her there was an achievement in itself. To have her doing 29, it's down here as 29:14 in defeat rather than 29:15. So to do
15, I think, yeah.
29:14 in defeat is like, it's unbelievable. And Graham Box and Bev Lockheed, I didn't get to see them after racing Saturday night, but I got a text from them, and it was just something along the lines of, "We are so proud of her. We couldn't be happier." And on another night we might have won, but the other Kobe was just too good.
Well, like she's another bitch that was at the very top of her game on the night. And I know season fell right in the sense of the timing and all that, but like, I wouldn't have had her down as a Derby winner or a Derby runner up. Coming into it, we've seen a lot of Bacchus Crystals. Not like we didn't know what she was capable of. I just didn't have her at that level. Like this, to me. Now I know
I think
I'm
she's
not.
far. I think she's far sharper this year than she was last year.
She definitely looks that. She definitely. Like, I mean, if you watch the semi final, and the other Kobe led, and she showed phenomenal pace to almost get on top of the other Kobe at the first bend. And it was the same the other night. She showed phenomenal pace into the bend. Now, you're losing momentum, and you're losing your opportunity to get around when there's a ground in front of you, because you've got to think your way around it a bit. Even if you're only cost yourself a half a length or a length, it makes a big difference in at this level of competition. Like, I know you talked last week about 29, her doing 29:20, right? And she did 29:15, right? But I still don't know that clock. The clock doesn't sit happily with me, because it's when three dogs do 29:21 in the set, three dogs 29:21 or better in a 550 race. It's track is too fast, if you ask me. It's also handing a huge advantage to the early pacers. And I just have a concern that if we're going to keep going with the tracks that fast, then what I said a few weeks ago, which is kind of outlandish, I even agree myself that it is. But it won't be like if that goes on for a few years, we'll be talking about stepping the Derby up to 575 to make it more of an actual race, a contest, because that's the type, if it's effectively now a 525. We talked about it for a while, saying you don't really need to stay to win a Derby anymore. If
The
you
only
stay
thing I'll say about
525,
that, Tommy, is there's plenty of arguments on the night to counteract that. Like you had a number of races won from dogs off the pace, including the likes of Bobsleigh Dream and Ballybola Ed
or a
picked up.
Derby final.
We also
Yeah.
had a situation where Ben's Teddy is fifth into the back straight. He's beaten a length and a half into third. Like it's not as if he's able to do 29-21 from off the pace. It's not as though he was that badly hindered. You know what I mean? I don't see a scenario if the track was 30 spots lower that he still wins it. I still think he finishes where he finishes because he's
Yeah,
not
but it's a
going
little bit,
for as well.
but the track is
Also,
a little
another
bit
thing we
more
want to say
testing.
about the track the other evening is that there were 72 greyhounds on the track. Not one of them took a tumble. Not one of them came off hurt. It was, by all accounts, it looked, and while the clocks would suggest it was going very well is the term I'll use rather than fast, but it was going very well. It looked perfectly safe. And I suppose that's what you want on the night. Plus, people arriving want to see the dogs doing, fast times. They want to see the best dogs doing good clocks. And I would suggest that the Derby track this year was slower than in recent years through the Derby, but I think we got back to parity on Derby final night to how it's been running. Certainly the new in Taylor year, it was light and fast that year. All the dogs were doing big runs, including obviously the track record from Pastana. But I think all the evidence the other evening suggested that it wasn't a hindrance to dogs that were trying to come from off the pace, and it was perfectly safe.
I can see where you're coming from, Tommy, right? Like before you had a Laurels type dog and you had a Derby type dog. Now the two are merged together. No, come here. When you're breeding a litter, you're breeding for early pace, and
Oh yeah,
that's what you're breeding for. Like, and
but
I
you're right.
You used to have dogs who'd miss the Derby and go for the Laurels because you just know they wouldn't steal out to 550. I know every one of those dogs have a chance of leading, and Derby dog now could lead around the bending cork. I know exactly where I come from, but I just think the breeding is after changing too. Like you're breeding for it's all early pace.
You look at the sires. Ballymac Best, Druby Sydney 3 times, Ballymac Best, and Ewan Taylor. Like you wouldn't be saying any of them are being bred for stamina. The reason that people have gone to those dogs is because they're trying to get that brilliant early speed. And as it just so happens that 3 or 4 of the dams, are throwing stayers, and you throw the stamina from the dam side and the speed from the sire side, and that's always the sort of the desired combination, Damien.
Yeah, that's what breeding has just gone to a fine art now. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's moved with the times like horse racing.
And as a result, the dogs that we are throwing up, and it's no coincidence that it's the same kennels that are producing them. With obviously a few exceptions every year, but by the by, like there's sort of the same people breeding all the fast ones.
Yeah, but look at like there's so many similarities between Galileo and Droopy Sydney. Like, the two dominated the sport. The two are like Droopy Sydney is coming near the end now. Like we know he's getting he's a bit of age about him now. He's not going to be around forever. But like, try to replace him. And then we had like the Ballymac Best. We were talking about breeding coursing once the Ballymac Best because they'd so much early pace. They wanted an outcross for a coursing line. So a lot of coursing bitches were bred to Ballymac Best. And here he's after throwing another Derby winner.
Two Derby winners.
Yeah,
and Droopy Sydney has yet to sire his first Derby winner.
But like it's just breeding is but it's after gone. It's a fine art now. Like before people were just going to Jimmy's dog down the road there, so he won a couple. He was a nice old dog. He won a couple. Now they're forking out the money, and they're reaping the benefits as well for it. Like, you know what I mean? But that's what it's. I think that's why we're seeing so many the early pacers.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that because if I was buying a dog that I wanted with a view of a Derby or breeding greyhound for Derby, you breed for early pace. You want to be out in front of the trouble, but you want the racing also to be interesting and competitive. And I know you could say that there's only a half length and a length in it and all that, but like the clock is what concerns me too. And the track was safe. I'm not questioning that at all. But like, the faster that track gets, the shorter the race is effectively. I mean, it's not that long ago since the Derby, the 5-5 Derby was won in 29-11. It's just that it's getting so fast now. What we had in the Derby in the past was, you wanted the Derby to be a unique test. You want it to be a unique test and saying, this is the Greyhound that has everything. This is the Greyhound that can start and the Greyhound that can stay. At the moment, it's the Greyhound that can start. That's just my concern when a track is that fast. I'm not taking anything away from the other Kobe. I think it was an exceptional performance particularly by Jennifer O'Donnell and the team. I mean, they should be so proud of themselves. It was remarkable. It was training to the finest art. That's what it was, to my mind. But anyway, I just think
does the test not come in the form of the 6 weeks? You know, the fact that it's 6 runs, like that in itself is the test.
Trying to keep.
But I think why was it moved to 550 in the first place from 525?
To be honest, I'm too young. I'm too young to remember. Like the first 550 Derby was Kyle Jack. So when was that? That's 1990. No, it's not 1985, was it?
What age were you?
84. I was about 7. I know I don't look. I know I don't look at the lads. I know I don't look at, you know. Kyle Jack was 86. 1986 was the first 550-yard Derby. So like we're talking nearly 40 years. You know, it's not as if we haven't had time to adjust to this. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't understand what you mean by what time to adjust to. There's not time to adjust to it. Like what happens is it's time. It's progress with time.
If you look through the Derby, you know, yes, it's quite a few years since the dog came from further back than second to win the Derby. You know, it's actually Skywalker Puma, funny enough, for Francis O'Donnell
and
back in 2012.
This is all fine. I'm just saying that there's potential that we have that it should be looked into. It might never happen, but I think it will at some stage. But it should be looked into as a thing to keep the Derby fresh and to keep the Derby a unique test and a unique challenge. Damien's 100% right. Like a Laurel's dog and a Derby dog are very close to being the same thing at the moment. Okay, they're not quite okay, obviously, but they're very close to being the same thing now. It's just a unique test, and I'm saying, you and I and Damien and everybody else who's been looked at the Derby this year, we've looked at each race as probably looking for the dog that's going to pop out in front. We do the same thing, and we probably will if it's a 575. We'll probably do the same thing anyway. But I'm just saying, you know, we're keyed into what it is now. It's a 550-yard race, and that's what it is. And it's a specialist early pacers kind of a race.
And yeah, I'll take you back to a couple of things that were said on Saturday night. Firstly, I think it was David Lestrange, one of the owners, that said we wanted to bring him to the Bar One Racing Irish Sprint Cup at Dundalk. And Jennifer said, no, we're going to have a go at the 550. Don't worry, he'll be ready. He'll perform. You know, if we have this more testing 550-yard trip, we may have lost out on Derby winners like Ewan Taylor or the other Kobe. And I think the beauty of the Derby is we want to see the best and fastest, pure speed greyhounds with the chance to run it as well. Like if you make it a more testing, 400, but if you make it a more testing Derby, like I think it's okay where it's at, because I think proper strong running dogs can still win it, but it doesn't rule out the early dogs.
They're unlikely to.
Real early
well, the point I'm making, Ian, is right. I'm making this point now, and I'm not making it 10 years ago. I'm making it now because things are only going to get quicker. The breeding is being refined, as Damien said, 100% right. It's being refined for pure speed, and now knowing that you don't really need to have that extra bit of stamina to win a Derby. So I'm looking at it now, thinking that it's only going to get faster over the next number of years. And I just wonder what's it going to turn out like? What's it going to be like in 3, 4, 5 years' time? That's all I'm thinking. I mean, look,
I know that, Tommy, but it's also an argument you've been making for the last 3, 4 years where these dogs are going to be regularly breaking 28 seconds. And yes, 2 a year do it. It's not like 2 a night. But I don't think it's getting any faster. I think it's where it's at now. I don't think it's going to get any faster. It just so happens the other Kobe went fastest of all time because it was perhaps up there with one of the most perfect Derby final displays that we've seen in recent times. The one that you'd equated to is the likes of Susie Sapphire. And I remember at the time that she did a very fast time, perhaps her fastest time over the trip.
Ben Teddy's run, finishing third, is that the second fastest ever in a Derby? Because 29.18 was Susie Sapphire, so 29.21 is probably the second fastest. It would be the second fastest Derby win if he won it, Ben Teddy. And he finished third.
I'd put that down to his supreme training performance as well. Do you know what I mean? like in a strong running Derby, he mightn't have been in that position to win, because there might have been 2 other dogs capable of doing, big runs from, if they got in front of him. You know what I mean? Different, stronger, but it's just a different test. It's more speed than stamina. That's fair enough.
He lost.
I think that's okay for a Derby.
Bacchus Crystal probably didn't win the Derby final because she hadn't the early pace to lead the other Kobe. She definitely cost, when you're behind the Greyhound, it's definitely costing you a bit. And then and I'm not talking about the checking late on, but also the first bend, because she was showing terrific pace into the bend. Ben Teddy probably lost the Derby final because whether the one dog came back in, well met always moves very wide down the back, came back in and topped the third bent. Now, would have a small bit of a concern. The same thing happened to him on in the semi-finals, and you just wonder. But he got slightly clipped in when he tried to move off a bit at the third bent, and he lost more than the length. I'm just saying that the three dogs there could have done 29-11, like.
They could have, but the same can be said in sprints. Oh, well, that dog got to the front. If it had been, this, that,
Like
or the other thing.
we don't bet on sprints. Sprints don't attract the same sort of interest, and they don't attract the same sort of betting. I'm sure.
But it could
Damien
always be set
probably
for
thought about that.
525 then. You know what I mean? But the fact of the matter is, no matter what trip it is, like I know the 750 the other night was won from a bitch coming from off the pack, but it was Hanover Phantom who got to the front. And if the unbelievably talented Ballymac Taylor's not in it, again, it's the dog that leads to the first corner wins. That's the nature of the beast. You know what I mean? When you're in behind, you're in behind.
We're forgetting about the thing too. You have these fast starters. To get them to do it 6 weeks in a row, it's not simple. Like it's not simple. It's not as simple as just like the likes of like Ben's Teddy there now, right? If he did get if Well Met and the other Kobe missed a slightly bit of trouble, Ben's Teddy is probably a lot closer to him down the back and could the Derbies won like. But that's what you're you definitely like these dogs they're not. There's no button on them. You just can't get break tonight. You have to have these dogs 110% every night. Like,
yeah.
I remember Owen's father, Ger. He used to be remember Sky Television. He trained the beast. They be talking about the dog. I'm only having 70% at the start of the competition, and they get better. He used to tell me, Damien, I'd have to have him 100% every night. You have to have him 100% every night to get him to do what you want him to do. Like so like. Yeah. It's a number. I thought it was an unbelievable performance to get the other Kobe to do it every night. Like
it's an art form. I spoke to.
He didn't do it every night. He didn't do it every night. I think, and that's what I think was so good about the training.
There was an issue. There was an issue after the opening round. I think she said he had a touch of a kidney issue or something like that. But it took a week or two just to get that sorted. But in terms of fitness, the dog was ready and well in himself. But yeah, as Tommy said, it wasn't every night. There was a peak situation to it. But whereas he did have a small issue at the start. There were others that were unbelievable. Like Bocco's Crystal couldn't have been at her very best in the opening round, but yet she flashed out, did everything she had to do. Like she ran as well as she possibly could, given Mother Nature. Others like 365 ran her, apart from the final, like she was 29.42 the other evening. She had a 29.47 in the opening round. Like they're at their peak form from the start. Like Well Met just was model of consistency through the competition. You can't really judge Music Glide Away the other evening, but he came from a mile back in the opening round to win. So you can't say that he wasn't, as you say, close enough to 100% at the start of the competition. But there is a point where you try and press for that extra 1%, 2%, and I'm sure that's what happened for all six finalists. Tommy.
Yeah, I agree. Like Ian, I'm saying, I don't really want to take. I've taken this off in a bit of a tangent, and I don't want it to detract from the winner or any of the performances in the final, because I genuinely think this is one of the best training performances I've seen in a very, very long time. I think, and actually, you know what? If the other Kobe had been knocked out early in this competition, we'd never talk about the dog ever, because we say he was a very fast dog on his day, but he wasn't. Whatever. He's now in the history books because of. To me, well, because of his ability, obviously, but because of his trainer's ability. That's why he is. I think there was an exceptional training performance. And even though I talk about the Derby stepping up and whatever, like Jennifer O'Donnell trained the dog to be a 550 dog for the Derby, and that's the art. That is the art. This is
she trained a 525-yard dog to be a Derby champion.
And that's why I'm saying how good the training performance was, and like it's brilliant by Graham Holland. It's brilliant by Graham Holland to get Bocco's Crystal to that level of form, to a career best effort, in my opinion, and unlucky in a Derby final. The same with Ben's Teddy. I mean, the training performances, and they're training for what's in front of them. I'm just saying that I'm looking at the Derby, thinking, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that some stage down the line we'll reconsider or readjust and go, maybe we need to change this somewhat to turn it into a more unique test. That's all. But in terms of a single race and in terms of a whole Derby, actually, I mean, it was fantastic. There were two 29.15s earlier in the competition. The other Kobe won them, the other, and a 29.11 in the final, and 29.14 in defeat, or 29.15 in defeat. It's fabulous. It was a fabulous Derby, fabulous competition. But I'm just saying, there is something to keep looking at, keep an eye on.
Yeah. I spoke to John Mitchell afterwards at Shelbourne Park the other evening, and you know, John is now obviously the husband of Jennifer O'Donnell. So he has skin in the game. He was a part owner of Board Warrior himself, but he's not one for hyperbole. But anytime you get a chance and you talk to him and I say, well, how are the dogs going? He says, grand. He says, you just want to see the two women with the dogs. He said, like, it's just, honestly, it's like, you know, he said they can talk to them. He said, it's just unbelievable how the two of them are with the dogs. And there's nothing taking the chance. Like, it's just, he said, they literally are dog whisperers. Like, that's the way he speaks with such reverence of how amazed he is by how they do. And I think the results are there to be seen, Damien.
Oh, it's I said breeding. It's unreal. Like, you know, Jennifer has it from both sides. You know, it's I can understand 110% what John was saying. Like, yeah, I'd say like they did scale. They have scaled back. Like, you know, we don't see as many Mount Taylors and the others anymore. Like, but they're reaping the benefits of it now, aren't they? Like, they're just
they've a few Scoobies at the
You're
moment.
right,
They're
like,
showing plenty of promise, I can tell you.
no, but like,
man,
like it's just, I'd say like they leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
And look, they 2 years now in a row. I'm not sure will we see it happen again in a long time.
Yeah, Tommy.
I was just saying she had a very small team in the derby. Was it three runners, maybe three runners?
Did she have a third?
I think they might
She
have
had
had a
seven
third, maybe.
beach. Seven beach. To the Colby. Ash, listen, she could have three or four. I can't remember, to be honest. I can't remember anymore. No, Seven Beach and the other Colby would be the two I had, and Seven Beach was a Derby semi-finalist, so that in itself is an achievement. I have to talk about the three men that owner Brian Clare, David Lestrange, and Aidan Walsh. Aidan Walsh had a Derby finalist back in 1984. Curryhill's Fox finished last on that occasion. A very, very talented greyhound that he owned with his great pal Charlie McCreevy. Here we are, though. Brian Clare, a regular at Shelbourne Park for many years, had dogs in the past, nothing of Derby sort of pedigree. David Lestrange, his nephew, bought him the dog on the recommendation of Teddy Hegarty. We have to give Teddy his kudos. I remember last year him talking to me. I said, "What do you think of the other Kobe?" And I was truthful. I said, "I backed him to win the Kirby. I think he's a bit of a flying machine. I think, you know, obviously it depends on the inside, but he's a proper greyhound." He says, "What sort of money?" I said, "Well, you wouldn't get him for cheap." And he told me what he bought him for. And don't get me wrong, it was a substantial amount of money, but I would have thought you got a lot more for him. I think the fact that they agreed with Jennifer to keep him in the kennel was why they got him for the price that they did. That's a matchup made in heaven. It's worked out great for them, and a fairy tale story for certainly for Brian, but obviously for David as his first dog, and Aidan Walsh, who's been involved in dogs for many years. Had obviously a Scottish Derby finalist in Fair Taxes, has owned plenty of good dogs, has had a Cheltenham winner in the horses, Tommy. But they were all joyous on Saturday night. I was lucky enough to speak to them and interview them in the Oak Suite afterwards to their crowd, and they got a great reception up there. But it's a great story, and fair play to Teddy. He told them it was going to be a Derby dog, and it was supposed to be for 2022, not 2023, but they got there.
Teddy didn't want them backing him to win the 2023 Derby. he was being cute. Yeah, it is a great story. There's no, like despite what we've been talking about for the last 15, 20 minutes, there's nothing bad about this Derby. In fact, it was fantastic. And as you said, made the point about them all coming off safe. It was it was a great finish, to the Derby. The whole lot about everything about it, even the race itself was very good and whatever else. But like it I think it wrapped up the Derby brilliantly. Of course, Born Warrior obviously ran for Jennifer in the first round of the Derby as well. So I think that was the three.
Oh, Born Warrior, of course. Yeah, Born Warrior. Yeah, how could you forget about a Derby champion? Damien, in behind them, we've mentioned Bocco's Crystal, we've mentioned Ben's Teddy. They both were fantastic to the competition. 365 ran a big race in fourth spot for the boys. For Scott Phelan was delighted with himself. He was wearing the Dickie Bow on Saturday night. Kira was delighted. The Pints of High Note Syndicate, needless to say, they were delighted. Scott, of which is one of the members, Dean being the other member, and I think there's the other chap was still in Australia watching on. Music Glide Away just didn't happen for him. He needed to hit the lids. Just the week that was in it, the night that was in it, the noise and whatnot. A dog that's been a little bit inconsistent at boxes through his career. He's improved lately. And he was prominent enough into the opening corner, but just kept wide, and that was that. And well met. Again, a dog who would have needed to lead the other evening, but they all played their part in making this a great Derby.
Oh, they just look. It doesn't, like you were saying, like Music Glide Away. He was a bit of like he really probably himself and 365, well, 365 had her times, but Music Light Away did come in sort of unknown to the like he wouldn't have been a household name, but he quickly grew into that, and just things just didn't go his way Saturday night. But if you missed the beat at all Saturday night, that was it. Your chance
Yeah.
was over. Like your chance was over.
Yeah, one or two of
I
these
think.
dogs. Go ahead, Tommy.
Sorry, I think Patrick Foyle did a great job with him because actually Music Glide Away broke. If you think about it, right, he's only probably two and a half lengths down at the first bend, but he's behind the other Kobe, Bacchus, Crystal, and Well Met, who was showing the pace into the
Yeah.
bend. Like he's actually probably as close as you could possibly imagine that he would be, and as
He
possibly as
does he
close
does
as.
he does 346, his second fastest section of the Derby.
Yeah, like and the winner did a second fastest section of the Derby as well, curiously enough. But like Music Glide Away, I think actually he was positioned as well as the dog could be. In other words, I think he was trained as well as he could be to do exactly what he could. He needed to position himself early, and he just didn't have the early pace, doesn't have the early pace of three exceptional early pacers in Bacchus, Crystal, the other Kobe, and Well Met. So and then he got a bit of a bump from Well Met at the first bend, and that kind of set him back a little bit. Like and after that, it's an uphill struggle. He got trouble off the last bend as well, probably resulted in finishing last. But I think like, I mean, as far as getting the dog to the Derby final and getting them there in peak, Pat Kilfoyle could do no more with that greyhound.
No, I tend to agree with you. Gentlemen, it was a great finish to the Derby, great reception. We saw Jennifer and Francis hugging in front of the crowds. They were loudly cheered at a packed Shelbourne Park. It was a very special occasion and a great winner. Congratulations to all involved in the other Kobe, Jennifer O'Donnell especially, and of course the owners Brian Clare, David Lestrange, and Aidan Walsh. Wonderful night for them, and the other Kobe will forever be remembered as 2023 Derby champion. Tommy, it was a very special night racing outside of that. Some remarkable times, some remarkable performances. You put the best greyhounds on, and you give them a chance to run on a night like that. They're going to do quick times, and that was very evident from the very start. Rathja and Molly, we said before racing, she looked an absolute certainty. She had 28-27 on her card. I said to someone she'd do 28-30 off the front. She's beaten half length in 28-23. She does 28-26, but it was fire time that got up in the closing yards. That sort of set the tone for the evening.
Yeah, I do. It's actually a very smart performance by the winner. There's still 4 or 5 lengths between them at halfway. It was a real smart performance to 28-23 in the circumstances because Ratha Molly she's been terrific all year. Second in the Gold Cup, was it? She finalist in the Sprint Cup as well, I think.
Yeah.
She's just been in super form. So it did set the tone because there were we'll talk about them I suppose individually, but there were some great performances, really good races actually through the night.
Yeah, the second race, Damien, you were getting celebratory pictures and videos from the second winner, Sonia and Grande. It's turned into a lovely dog for Jack Kennelly and the boys there, the Swedish House Party Syndicate. That was a party I wouldn't mind being at on Saturday night.
There was I woke up this morning. There was WhatsApps and Facebook messages coming in from this dad. These are really seven blowing Tomashin's pub in Lizelton. These mad. These are like they're different. Like these are Kerry people, different breed. Like they're just.
I
Oh,
haven't looked up Sonia and Grande. What is Sonia and Grande? Or where is it?
I don't.
There's obviously a story there.
I'm not actually, but like these lads are totally after noodles. They're just below that. Just like he won. Imagine if he won the Derby. He won €2,000 the other night. Derby final that winner. After and like Jack Kennelly, in fairness to him, he not afraid to travel. Is he?
Yeah, no, he certainly have dog will travel. That's
And
the beauty of youth, Damien. The beauty of youth. You'd know
you
all about that.
you have to take your hat off to him. It was love. It was great to see. Like he's like I think he wasn't too. I think he played was a minor football for Kerry or under 21 as well. Jack did like
There's no future in that. The
so,
future,
but
the
like
future in football's in Dublin.
we kind of have to think past the red cow roundabout anyway.
Dawn has have to put it up there in the chat. She thinks it means dream big.
Dream big,
Oh
dream
by
big.
God,
Yeah.
they can dream big. On to the third race in the card. Oh, sorry. Is it amazing how all these lunatics are they're attracted to Damien. He must be like a magnet to all these
Magnet, yeah.
types.
If
Yeah.
anybody right at all, they wouldn't be talking to me like.
Yeah, Tommy, the
Friend of
first
yours,
real
Ian,
sort of
apparently. Friend of yours, apparently.
well, that's fair enough. The first real jaw-dropping moment of yeah, that's a good point. The first jaw-dropping moment of the evening came in the third race. Tommy, Bobsleigh Dream. She got off the front, maybe just left a mark the run from Nottingham on Monday night on the slower track in Nottingham. She's picked up. It was a massive run by Gaytime Hugo. He's a dog that's been a bit disappointing, but the 600 yards was always going to suit him. But did I think he was going to pick up Bobsleigh Dream? not in your Nelly. 32.09. The run is there. He beats her ahead. It was a remarkable run. But for missing the kick somewhat, Undulation, who's only another length back, she could well have taken the world of beating. She was the one that I sort of sided with at the end. But as it was, Bobsleigh Dream picked up by Gaetam Hugo. This was the start of the, wow, results could go the wrong way tonight.
Geez, and look at this race. Wouldn't it be great to have the Derby over 600s? Gaetam Hugo ran it.
Don't start you.
Gaetam Hugo actually is a dog of immense ability. He's just quirky. I think I saw him one day even being difficult to kind of get into traps. He's just that type of dog that when the mood is on, though, he can really run, really, really run. And again, takes great patience. It must be frustrating when you're a trainer and you have a dog like that, and he's good enough to be a Derby contender, and he's good enough to compete at the very top in every level. And it's just, I suppose it's probably what makes good trainers even better is actually having to deal with this and trying to get the best out of them. He's immensely fast. Yes, I think you're right. I mean, Bobsleigh Dream has been in great form. You would have said a certainty when she led, but she's done a bit of traveling in that, and that can just leave a little bit of a mark. It's bound to. Like, I mean, they're animals at the end of the day. They're not robots. Like, it's just she actually ran her heart out. Absolutely ran her heart out. An Undulation, like you said, just missed it slightly. I was encouraged to back it. I didn't actually have a bet on the night apart from Ben Steady in the final. I was encouraged to back Undulation, and it stayed out of the race. The price had kind of gone a little bit. Ran a cracking race in defeat. I mean, I tell you, 600 is where the Derby is, the future.
After a 4-9 favourite been beaten in the first, an even money favourite getting beaten in the second, and a 6-5 and a 13-8 finishing second and third in the third race, I was very surprised how quiet it was when Road Exile hit the front early. I thought he'd be 4-7. He's returned even money. He clearly wasn't well supported, Damien, because even money was a perfectly fair price about a dog who had lit up Dundalk in the early rounds of the Irish Sprint Cup, and I thought it was probably the weakest Derby final sprint we've seen in a while. And that's what surprises me about Road Exile. Because if Rathdown and Molly was 4-9, this fellow should have been 4-9.
Yeah, look, we said we were speaking Thursday night there, Thursday afternoon. We just said it probably wasn't the best of the best sprints that we've seen in Derby final night. I thought he would be. Thought he would have went off odds on as well, but maybe thereafter they were sort of a bit nervous.
Yeah, there was fingers burnt obviously in the evening.
Yeah, the wings were after getting clipped in the first three races, so they weren't as brave, I'd say, to go into it. Because usually, the IIs would be going up, wouldn't they? Like now and
Yeah.
But no, Road Exile. Look, I think they had a bit of problems with him starting off. He went to Dundalk the first night. It was the night of the.
Yeah, I think he caught Pat unawares, to be honest, the first night on the international night.
Yeah, 2080 something, wasn't it?
2094 or 96 or something. He did that night,
so
yeah.
I know, and then he fancied him one night in a 5-5 race. But like I text Pat Best look the other day, and he rang and we were talking. He goes, "Look," he says, if you want to get the money for points tonight, he says, "I'll win the sprint." So, and he'd Bobsleigh Dream, he'd Ballinabool Edge, I know he'd Ben Steady in the final, but he started quietly fancy this fella. So that's why I'm surprised. Was off even money.
Quietly fancy the dog we thought should be 4-9. Tommy, there were IIs in the 750. But I'll tell you one thing, they were very quiet for a long way. They only started II in the last 20 yards. This was a remarkable performance by Ballymackaty. She's a monster. People kept telling me Hookham will win. He's got a great draw. I said, well, yeah, but I said the bitch could be gone in two. I said, it's not as if she's guaranteed to be upsides all her runners and maybe take them off. I said, the key to this race is if Ballymackaty missed the kick, because if she misses the kick, she finds her way onto the fence. And if she finds her way onto the fence, she'll take the world of beating. Now, after 400 yards, I'd have gladly taken back the few quid I had on her. But, she just got a seam up the inside. She never moved more than 6 inches off the rail. She wins in 41-24, coming from, God knows, 12 lengths back. It was sensational.
She takes her time to get going, doesn't she? Like, she's still last going on the
she's not your traditional
bends.
4-bender stepping up to 6. Like, she's born a 6-bender. You know what I mean?
I see. You do need to stay over some of these trips, Ian. But she got a remarkable run. Now, in fairness, she manufactured her herself, but like there was a little bit of luck there on the crown of the last two bends where one of the Greyhounds just moved slightly off. Maybe it was 6, moved very slightly off, just left enough of a gap for her to exploit. But like it was,
tiring dogs do move off. That's the key.
Yeah, no, of course. But it was one of the performances of the night. Actually, I won the races of the night. It was actually a joy. She's a brilliant bitch. Yeah, and that's the most exciting part is the fact that like at the fourth bench you're still worried you have no chance. You're still thinking probably can't win from here, can I?
Damien, they've hinted that they could be on their travels with this lady. I think they've mentioned that perhaps Perry Barr is in the offing the St. Ledger in the UK. But you'd imagine the likes of the Golden Jacket and the TV Trophy next year would be right up her street. She'd be taking on her sister over there, Ballymac Taylor. Very similar style of running, and of course, there's a certain space jet if she's still rocking around. It could be one to keep an eye on Ballymac Katie over the next few weeks and months. We'd love to see her over there taking on the UK's best.
Can you imagine if Sky Racing was still going now? What the
Oh,
pay, she'd be definitely bubbly, or something like that. Wouldn't
yeah.
she definitely be something now? Like she just screams out that sort of trip, doesn't she? Like,
Yeah, I heard whispers the other evening that they've turned down monstrous money, because I think she's the last of the Ballymac Razzle line they have down there. I think they've sold most of the others, so I think they want to hold on to this lady, and they've already sold a couple of the litter companions for good money. So I don't think this one's for sale. Now
no.
I know they all have a price, but I'll tell you something, I wouldn't like to be trying to find it underneath the couch.
I know
Fair play to Dowley. They're going to breed a bit of stamina back into the lines.
Well, they can see that when the Derby's over 600 yards to be flying. Moving on,
Uh,
the sixth race in the card, Hawkville Blue was one of those dogs, Damon, we spoke of. He was 6-4 during the week, 11-8, and it was, oh no, he was even short. It was 11-10 or so.
Hmm.
And it was a case of you're only betting on him to trap on terms. And once trapping on terms, game over. He had the early speed to contain his rivals into the corner where he asserted 28 seconds. He's had something similar on his card. I don't think it was any surprise that he did that run.
No, like I think it was the final play, the champion plate he was in,
No champion stakes.
or champion stakes, sorry, champion stakes, and he's the one that the money was for,
Yeah.
and have, like that he wouldn't have been a dog to stand out to me before the champion stakes, but when I seen the Shrudies back and they said this fella's not so bad, and when the draw came up, the trap draw was done for the Derby final, I just thought, yeah, this is probably this is nappage, and didn't think he returned a 4-7 chance though. There must
Yeah.
be getting a bit
At,
brave
at this
after.
stage, the confidence was back. We had a couple
Yeah.
of short price favourites that won Ballymacady, and obviously Road Exile wasn't heavily backed, but I think they gained confidence by the fact that even just favourites were winning. Hawkfield Blue, Jamie McGee got stuck into my ear on English Derby final night. And when the jacket was taken off the other evening, after hearing what Jamie was saying, I was expecting a pair of wings to appear. They clearly think the world of him. On to the seventh race in the card. It was the Consolation Derby final. It just wasn't meant to be for Cooley Hoffa. Tommy, he's just not the same dog. He was a bit reticent to going to traps and sort of came out awkwardly, stumbled a little bit, and that was that. But the same can't be said for Trinity Junior. Again, showed great early speed, got to the front. Clonaroo Sydney came with an absolutely withering challenge. I hope they run him in that one of those 575, 600-yard competitions that'll be in the next few weeks. You'd imagine he's been just nailed on to take on one of the 575 or 600-yard trip at the Winter Racing Festival.
Yeah, like this is excellent again from Trinity Junior because he had to battle like mad to get to the front. He only barely got it. He only barely made it. Just got that length just before the first bend, and that was the difference. Clonaroo Sydney ran a super race because he's about 6 lengths down on the leader at halfway, and to run to half a length, he's just a dog that's going in the right direction. I just would say from the previous race too, I thought Bonkers and Yonkers ran a super race.
Yeah,
I know, I
huge
know,
race.
I
Yeah,
know. In the
big
last
race.
25 yards, Hoffield Blue kind of pulled away a bit, but Bonkers and Yonkers ran some race to kind of try keeping a specialist early patient like that honest all the way. I thought I like Clonard Sidney, like he had shown up so well in the Derby, and he's a dog that's open to further improvement. You imagine he's only going to go in one direction. He can break better than he did the other night, but like credit to Trinity Junior, he's been to every big competition, and he's performed. He's just he like I know we kind of felt like we were running him down a bit when none of us seemed to fancy him for the Derby back at the start. But he again ran his heart out. A bit unlucky that things just didn't go right from the semi final. So
Yeah.
he deserved that. Even though he already has competitions and already has success under his belt, he deserves it because he's that consistent and that good.
He's firmly in the bracket of one of Ireland's best. Like that's
Yeah.
he's proven. He's a proven competition greyhound. He has early speed. He's good down the back, and he gets the 550 yards. And it's just
Like
there's a real honesty to him.
as well as breeding pace into the greyhounds. What you want in breeding too is constitution, and there's a greyhound with an unbelievable constitution to be able to keep racing at the level he's racing at. So I mean, he should be part of some part of breeding in the future. That there will be Trinity Juniors, hopefully.
Yeah, and yeah, look at his breeding as well. Law Hill Blake, lovely early speed there. OYU penalty, his dam was an absolute aeroplane. She had quirks, but by God, she could run. Clonruth Sydney, we look forward to where he turns up next. It could be the end of the road for Coulivanny Hoffa. I think we should remember the best of Coulivanny Hoffa, though. I think I'd largely be blanking out what he's done in his last 3 or 4 races. Didn't happen for him. Just, it's too big an ask. And that was simply the truth, Tommy.
I think I think he ran a remarkable race in the semi-final of the Derby.
Yeah.
I think he's the same when I saw him there last year live, and I was just stunned by how good he was. And we had the great pitch. We were up in your commentary position, looking down on it. So you can just see everything happen so well from that position. Like I think he's a phenomenal dog. He didn't win a Derby, and it would be very easy to kind of write him off and forget about him as a kind of a just not quite a Derby dog. Yeah, in terms of ability, he is. He definitely is. He's nearly as good as there is in the country,
Yeah,
if
he's
not the
he's a
best.
sensational greyhound. It just didn't happen for him. Just one or two things went wrong. We'll move on. Damien, on to the Michael Fortune Memorial Derby plate. We should really have gone to this second after the Derby because this was worth €7,500. This competition was kind for your company, I would suggest. You do sponsor it, of course. There were some big prize winners through this competition. What was it in the quarterfinals? We had 2 25-1 winners, a 10-1 winner, and a 7-1 winner. Well, we had a 10-1 winner the other night. Blast off Mac, but he wasn't without a chance, despite the fact that I've said numerous times that I couldn't see past the top 2 in the market. But it didn't happen for them. Beepers Lariat completely missed the kick. He fluffed his lines, and Balnabola Una, as strong as she is, she's not going to be picking up a Blast Off Mac or a Neon Lights, 2 dogs that certainly stay 5-7-5 yards, you'd imagine, and maybe even further. Blast Off Mac got to the front, and Philip Buckley, we spoke about this dog briefly, Tommy, right at the start of his career. I think he ran in his first 2 or 3 races in the Kirby Memorial. I remember pointing him out, going, keep an eye out for him. He can run a bit. It wasn't happening from back then. And this is only his 3rd win the other night, but by God, he went out and took it. Damien,
He's
sorry.
only.
Sorry, Tom. It doesn't matter.
Go on, Tommy, go on.
Uh, I would just say, like, he's extremely lightly raced, and you wouldn't have said the draw was exactly ideal. So he had to do everything right. It was a lovely show of early pace to lead, and and it wasn't laden with early pace, but it was a lovely show of early pace and determination, because he's a middle seat. He's not a white seat, and he's running trap 6, and he's getting across a bit. Really nice performance from a dog that can and probably will improve.
Yeah, Damien, the one thing I want to mention about this, and we do give it the odd sire a shout out. We've given this Droopy Sydney dog a shout out over the times. Grange U10 has had a few good weeks. He's all of a sudden, like, he's got the absolute flying machine that links Maverick across the pond, and he's had 2 or 3 serious performances now on this side of the water in recent weeks. He's a sire to keep an eye on.
Definitely is. And has he a litter of unlocks as well? Is he?
Yeah, that's not a bad way to get yourself established either.
No. Wonder what these will be, Tommy. Will these be 6? Will these be stairs, or will these unlock strange you then? But no, what price was Balnabola Una in the ring?
She's returned evens. I don't think she was that price. I think that was an exchange. Don't get me wrong, she could well have been evens. Like, there were some strange market moves on the night. Like, she went off evens. Like, Optic Chico went off evens. Like, dogs that you would have thought maybe a full half point bigger would be where they should be. But she's returned to evens, and as big a fan as I am, I'm not sure I want to be back in her evens.
No, because she was it 9-4, 5-2 or something. We went initially at the start of the week. And the money did keep coming and coming and coming for her. And as you said there, the top 2 in the market, you just couldn't look past them. Punters couldn't, like, so this is an absolute dino for the. I was just said a quick look before we went down there. The quick look was going, Jesus, this is these results. This results that will fall from the sky, innit?
At this stage now, Dawn's actually thinking of superimposing streamers and like trumpets and all for you and for your team.
Team, I'm the last one standing there. Like, I'm the last one standing there. But no,
you're the new face of BoyleSports.
Not this morning, maybe, but we'll try to work on it anyway. Now we have to say what we have to say.
You have to sort out the young offenders haircut, though.
Ian, stop now. Jesus. I'm in a touchy place this morning, so don't be at me, please.
Tired and emotional.
Philip Buckley, like, he's what did I get? He was second in the Ledger when he's second in Laurels.
No, he won a Ledger.
He won a Ledger. Sorry.
Yeah.
And
Classic winning trainer.
This didn't come out of the blue now. Like, you know,
Oh,
this
certainly didn't. Certainly
no,
didn't. He
would
had
I?
produced a couple of big runs in the competition. Like, he had picked up Booper's Lariat in the quarterfinals. Obviously, the time wasn't huge that night, but last week he does 29.71. He kept Beeper's Lariat honest throughout. So he's been improving through the competition, and 29.50 the other evening, off a good start, was evidence of the fact you'd imagine he'll certainly be lining up in the Ledger, where like he knows his way around Limerick.
No, I'd say definitely he'd take the van to Limerick, like, but
Yeah.
it no, it was look. I'm delighted. I'm delighted to see that, not from a company, right, but delighted to see someone like Philip Buckley having their big night in Shelbourne Park as well. You know, like, and
Yeah.
look, 7,500 is not to be laughed at either.
I saw Rebecca Porter posting on Facebook about her dog Neon Lights was second. Her and her partner Alan Byrne trained this lad. I met the owners actually, Paul and his lovely wife in Slattery's before racing, and they were just chuffed to have a dog in Derby final night. And Neon Lights at 25-1 ran his heart out. He's only 25-1 because of the draw. Damien, this is a dog I've spoken to you about a couple of times. I've always been a fan. I was really impressed by his run at Dundalk the night he did the massive run, 33.76 for the 620. You'd imagine a step back up and trip is the key for him.
Yeah, definitely. He was another dog that didn't really stand out before this thing. He went off a couple. He was double trigger prices a good few nights, but he definitely he ran above himself, didn't he? Like,
Yeah, he did.
he's a big massive improver. Like, and he look what he's by again. Ballymac best. Do you know?
Yeah.
They could just look. Maybe he was one that if he started doing this maybe 2 or 3 years ago, imagine about the pups he'd have on the ground. Like, you know, and he's really just
Yeah.
no,
Pastana was a good start anyway, wasn't it?
Pastana was a very good start, and that's it. But like,
Problem was Pastana took all his bitches.
he's breeding. He's
Jesus.
breeding, like, as I said, we go back in. Coursing lads were breeding to him for early pace, and here we are,
Yeah.
and he's there, like, you know.
Yeah,
So,
it's funny if Pastana, let's say, hadn't gone to stud for whatever reason, Ballymac Best would have been the
oh yeah,
main sort of beneficiary.
yeah.
Moving on to the 10th race in the card, Tommy Early Pace wins the race. This was a contest packed with early speed, but Halo, since they backed him off the boards in the opening round of Derby the night he was picked up by Glideaway Music, he's gone off some very fancy prices and won at fancy prices, 9-1 and now 10-1. I hope Basil and Bernadette had their few quid on, but I thought this was a very taking display from a dog. You would be like, you'd be driving the car to Cork yourself, like, with him. He's a stamp of a Laurel's dog about him.
He's a big 82-pound dog though. I know he
Yeah.
did a 201 the other night, but that you don't see the 201s off him very often. The night he beat Hawfield Blue over 550, was it?
Yeah.
He flew the lids as well, but he's not a fly the lids every night. But like, for an 82-pound dog to do a 201 section and come out the way he did and beat a good field to the bend, it's a fair performance. You have another holiday in there. Like, I mean, Pap de Oro is in there. Ballymac Run. I mean, it was a fair race. I thought it was a terrific performance. Really, if he could get a bit of consistency, he's like, there's obviously gaps in his career. There was a considerable enough sort of gap there last year. Unless there might have been something slightly holding him up at the time. But like, if you could guarantee, I mean, he's obviously going to be able to hold his own at a bend at the size of him. I mean, if you could guarantee that he could break something close to what he broke the other night, he would be the like a player in the Laurels. Yeah.
Yeah, 28-18 around Curraheen Park on the
Yeah.
8th of July off at 325. But either side of that, to highlight your point, he's a 331 and a 346 on the 15th of July. So, yeah, if he finds his trapping boots, as you say, yeah, it could be a player in the Laurels. I dare say you might see the likes of another holiday down there, Papa de Euro, even Clogheen Lass has some good form around Curraheen Park. That's definitely a race to look back on. The 11th race on the card, a dog that was heavily back during the day, and Carol Ramsbottom was the one that broke the news to me. He says, yeah, Glory Baz is out, we're on an SP. As it happens, that SP was much shorter than the 4-1 they had gotten early in the morning. He's returned 5-4, but Carol, as you'd imagine, and Sean Malone, I was talking to Sean after racing, he was absolutely delighted with himself. Sober Glory, 29-31. I think this was one of the races of the night, Damien. Mr. Chown was bang there the whole way around. The two of them dug in deep, and it was Sober Glory that came out on top.
Yeah, he's different great when he gets drawn in one, isn't he? Like, he just wants to be in there. I think, remember, maybe I had a few drinks with me one night in Kilkenny, and I just said,
That'd be unlike you.
I said to Carol, like, how's the fastest dog in the country? And like, I'm just saying, like if he was another, I think if he was another length quicker to the corner, I think he has everything, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's
No,
very,
he's
very
look.
fast. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with him. Zero. Do you know? But if he had that length to the corner, I think he'd be the real deal. No, he is the real, but he's the, you know. I think I still go. I know he's a bit behind the time the Derby final, but I think we'll be hearing a lot more about this dog next year. I think he's one.
Damien's changed his colours, Tommy. There was a time Damien didn't even think he was the fastest dog in the litter. He's a brother of Rye Hope Beach, of course. I wouldn't mind to see the two of them in a clash over 600 yards in the future. Tommy, sober glory. This was
Derby
Greyhound
final.
This was Greyhound racing at its best.
And this is a brilliant race. And in fairness to Mr. Chelm as well, Kildare, he didn't buckle at all in any
Didn't
way, shape,
shirk
or
at
form.
all. Didn't shirk the issue.
Like
Absolutely pressing him hard.
as Damien was talking about Trap 1 for Sober Glory, he's 6 from 7. The only night he got beaten out of Trap 1 was the night he got knocked out of the Derby, finishing fourth, a bit unlucky actually in running that night. Um, he does. You can see. I mean, the run into the bend, the Sober Glory and Mr. Chelm going together into the bend was a perfect example of two grounds that run almost exactly to form, because in a Derby final or in a Derby quarter final, semi final, that would have been just a length behind, or maybe a length and a half behind. You know, the
The other
real
Colbys of
sharp
this world.
greyhounds. Yeah, the real sharp greyhounds. That would have been just behind them, and that's enough to maybe put you in trouble, or leave you with an uphill battle. So they actually both ran pretty much to form. I thought, like I like the fact the runner up like gave everything in defeat, but Sober Glory is a tough dog. Damien is right. He's not, he's not a lot away from being a proper, close to one of the best in the country. He's not far off it. He just has to find that little bit early. That's how important that early pace is. You can't afford to be giving anything away. Not over this very sharp 550 trip.
Yeah, he's a dog you could map his campaign. Like, you're talking Ledger Winter Racing Festival, aren't you? Winter Racing Festival, step him up to 575, 600 yards. I'm just going to ignore you at this stage.
But step him up to 575. You the likes of you have Scaglietti, Ballinbola, Eds.
Well, we have to get there yet.
You know what I mean? Like, so there's not as if there's nothing in that category anymore. Like,
We move on. Perfect segue, Damien. Absolutely brilliant. The last race on the card, and a wonderful card at that. Scaglietti picking up Ballinbola Ed, Gaytime Nemo back in third, and Good Maestro back in fourth. This was a hell of a contest, both on paper and in the race itself. I think it was Ballinbola Ed tying up rather than Scaglietti finishing like a train. He kept on going. Don't get me wrong, he's doing 30.85 or 5.75. Unbelievable performance by the winner. But I think Ballinbola Ed just showing the signs that it's been a tough campaign. And the fact that he was in Nottingham on Monday and worked hard to get his run, I was surprised how quickly he tired. And into the escape, he was out in his feet. I thought, funny enough, Gaytime Nemo ran a monstrous race in behind, and he too had been in Nottingham on Monday night. But like, he must be 6 or 8 lengths behind the second dog down the back straight, and he's beaten the length and 2 lengths. I thought it was a huge run from him. But Scaglietti, you've said it, to use Damien's expression, he's danced every dance. He was in the final of the Kirby, he was in the final of Champion Stakes, and was so good in the early rounds of the Derby. It was great to see him winning on Derby final night for all that he's achieved this year, Tommy.
You just kind of broke up there. Ian.
I said it's sorry, after a full year of being there in every sort of competition, running so well in the early rounds of the Derby. It was great to see Scaglietti winning on Derby final night, and this really was a tremendous performance.
It was like, in fairness, he probably would have won the shade more comfortably if he could have got through the third bend. He just got held up as Ballinbola Ed ran the third bend, and he just wasn't Ballinbola Ed. He just wasn't, the same Ballinbola Ed. Yes, the early pace and that long run up obviously suits him, and he was able to. I mean, actually, it was a fabulous display of early pace by Ballinbola Ed. We must say that, because we
Yeah.
often say over 550, he just lacks that little bit of sharpness to get around in the very top company. And I think I made a statement earlier in the Derby. The likes of Ballinbola Ed has no chance of winning the Derby because of the early pace factor and the way the track was running. In my opinion, that you just can't afford to be a length or two behind. He actually showed great early pace over
His
with the full length of the straight.
his 467 sectional is lightning. Now, like, that'd lead up in open sprints now, but Pat has told me, like, you send him up the gallop with flashing willow, and he'll beat him. That's how much pace he does have.
Like, Scaglietti got a clear run in behind him, and he left him for dead going to the bend. I mean, left him a couple of lengths. That's huge, absolutely. Like, and you know what? it's a credit to the dog actually to Balnabola Ed that he showed that, and the effects of traveling and the campaign he's had recently. He's been quite busy recently. Now, I actually think he was well campaigned, to be quite honest about it. I don't think this was the select stakes was a good idea. It was the right thing to do to kind of, and he was in great form and they fancied him, whatever. It just didn't work out. But like this was kind of an afterthought. I know it's Derby final night and all that, but like there was a big pot to be
Yeah,
won in
the
Nottingham and
big
that.
pot was
So
on
I think
Monday,
that
as you say. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. The big pot was Monday, so I think they did the right thing by him. But this is just showing the effects of it. But what a credit to the dog that the way he flew out and did like that early pace was remarkable. It was bound to tell, not just the early pace, but the early pace on top of the traveling and the fact that he's been busy enough, in the last couple of months. So, I mean, he's a fabulous dog. I wonder what will happen for in the future for him, and how keen will we bring to bring bitches to him because he's remarkably fast.
yeah. Damien, we would be more than happy to see a similar type lineup in the Night of Stars 575 600. It could well be a different result on the night. Ballymac Marino missed the kick. He didn't get involved. Gaytime Nemo can go up a bit better. Scaglietti, like obviously he did what he can do. And Balnabola Ed, as Tommy said, on the night where he's primed for it, it could be a different scenario. It'd be a hell of a race to see again.
I was watching there last night. I just paused it just past the 600-yard line. Like, if I said, what price would you make Balnabool Aids? Just pausing from there, what price would you make Balnabool? I wouldn't care what's in behind them. I wouldn't care
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
in
yeah.
behind. You're kind of going, this is a unload job. This stock
Yeah.
is
There
certainty
was a
like.
few of them. There was a few of them on the night.
No, but like that's really like you could. I see where it coming from. Maybe it was just more so Ed coming back, but Scargetti, look, a lot of people did fancy for the Derby from the start, and I was sort of in the Scaglietti camp, you know. But no, it was a deadly race. It was a race last night, race night, and you have your few drinks in you, you're out in the stands, and look, it's what Derby it was what Derby night is all about, like, isn't it?
Yeah, Scaglietti actually went off favourite 6-5. I hadn't realised that in the night, so he did come in for pounds, shillings, and pence. And I met Teddy Hegarty after the last race, and he looked frazzled. I mean, frazzled. He was just. I said, "How was the betting tonight?" He said, "It was huge." He said it was as biggest he says we've had in years. And I said, "Did you win or lose?" He says, "I think we won." He says, but he says it was just unbelievable. I think he gave a fair chunk of it back now in the last race, shall we say. I think the winner was the one that came for the real support. But just a wonderful night's racing. And yeah, it wouldn't be Derby final night if Pat Guilfoyle didn't have a winner. So I suppose that's what people were doing. They were kicking on with Pat the last.
And it was just before you were talking about the first race, like Ian Riley, how many like he always gets his winner at Derby final, didn't he? It was always just it was and it was like nice to see him getting back on the winners board on Derby final night.
Yeah,
No, but just some of the SPs, Ian, like Anna Bailey going off 25 to 1,
I
like
know. Your fast dogs going off crazy prices. Yeah.
they're unreal. Like this whole the industry, I just don't know. I don't know about it at all.
Yeah. We'll see. Stick with Boyle Sports, folks.
Down with that sort of thing.
Damien needs that bonus.
Down with that sort of thing. Ian.
Down with that sort of thing. A wonderful Derby final night. We will go back to Bourne Warriors. We're signing off, but we do have to mention a few other bits and pieces from the weekend. I was planning on going through the Puppy Derby. Forget about that. Let's talk about the Juvenile Derby briefly. Tommy, the future is bright. There were some exceptional performances from the start. We saw the first heat won by Short Grip. She's a really nice type. Grange U10 out of Mystical Luna. First race, last race, heat winners, same litter. Groucho's Duke posting a big run. We'll get to him in a moment. Short Grip looks a really nice lady. She showed a lovely bit of early speed. 28:36 in Shelbourne Park. That will do. Onto the second heat, Dale Road Duke, a dog who has been, well, very highly spoken of by us. I know half the world has tried to buy him at this point. I don't think he's for sale. 4-6 the other night, following the withdrawal of Droopy's Bro, who sadly just did a little bit picked up a little injury during the week in a gallop, I believe. But Dale Road Duke, I don't think he would have been beaten anyway. Flew from boxes. We know how fast he is, Tommy. It was clear he was doing a big run at 28:01.
Yeah, and a 203, which is a nice step forward in what he had shown previously. He was a finalist in that the Dennis Linhan that was won by Droopy's Flightline, who won later on in the card on Friday night.
That's turning into some race. That's turning into some that's up there with one of the best open on race stakes we've seen.
Yeah, and again, it ties in nicely with what I've been saying about Korean for a while. They've made a huge effort this year to kind of increase the quality of racing week on week, and it's paying dividends. The Dennis Lynn has been the unrace has been around for a while, and this looks a remarkably good renewal of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I must
He's
mention.
he's he's
Go ahead.
sorry, just to say that he's introduced a bit of more early pace into his racing. Dale or Duke, you just like to see Druby Flightline do something similar, and then you've got a Derby dog for next year.
Yeah, you do. Just want to mention that Lucky Julie was in second in that race. She's beaten 3 lengths. She's doing 28-22 for the Hall of Famer that is Jerry Melia. Jerry's he's not a young man at this stage, but I'll tell you one thing: he can do a greyhound. This daughter of Ballymacbulger and Julie's Paradise was having just her fourth start, and her this really was a baptism, and yeah, to run as close as she did to Dale Roduca in the circumstances was pretty remarkable. Jerry is some man. Moving on to the third heat, I thought Miami King was a good winner. Got balked on the opening corner, stayed on his feet to win at 4-5. Looks a really nice type for Gary Dempsey and his new owners. He was known as what was his name? Tahina Bosman. He'd impressed at Shelbourne Park, and they recently purchased him. He'll certainly, as they say in bargain time or bargain hunt, he'll wipe his face. He won't cost them much money in the future. Druppy's Mandolin remains unbeaten. Damien, were you knocking around on Friday night, or did you see it, or am I talking to Tommy for the next few minutes?
I was sort of one eye. I had one eye in it, but you said, like, the future does look fair bright, doesn't it? Like,
Tommy, do you know what that means? Whenever BoyleSports price up this competition, we're going to find the value, because there has to be some.
I did, yeah. It's but you're quoting bargain hunting. That worries me. You're spending too much time with your mother.
It is. It's a regular at lunchtime in our house.
Yeah.
Droopy's Mandolin remains unbeaten for Alan and Pat Dobbs. Pat rides these, thoroughbred superstars, and he really, himself and his brother, are putting some money into the game. They've bought some really nice types there, and the key is the pedigree. They've gone for supreme pedigree, and this Droopy's Mandolin, like, she's Law Hill Blake out of Droopy's Curio. Curio was a monster. She broke a track record in her debut, for God's sake. She's turned into quite the sire, or quite the dam, should I say. Droopy's Flightline and Droopy's Mandolin, both winners the other night. This Droopy's Mandolin, she had to come from off the pace. There's more strings to her bow.
Once she kind of got neck and neck with it, was it? I thought he flew from the turbine home, and he galloped very strong through the line, I tell you.
Yeah, she's a really nice type, and one that you'd imagine they'll hold on for, because given the way they're managing pedigrees, this is one they'll be sort of looking to the future with. Scooby the Duke ran a big race in second. Big eye catcher here, Orchid Legacy, who ran in the Dennis Lynn and Tommy. I think a few people have tried to purchase him over the years. He's still where he is. Fast dog.
I suggest him to a trainer actually down in Cork to try to buy him actually during that Dennis Lynn.
So did I.
Yeah. I just thought he caught the eye in he's either second round, maybe first or second round. Yeah, there's so much depth in this. Actually, the one thing I do is, because there's a lot of heats and we probably won't get to go through them all, but like, did you think, and I definitely did think, that the Laddie Daz win in the eighth heat was a progression in terms of education for the Laddie Da?
Very much so. We're going to get to him. Right. Jetstream Breeze was a good winner of Heat 5. Looks a nice, strong type. Obviously, with the pedigree, I Am's a Breeze on the dam side. There would be plenty of stamina there. Certainly one to keep an eye on. Druby's Flightline, Tommy. We saw him at the Dennis Lynn, and we knew he was good. I, like you, thought there needed to be more early speed. When he hit the ground the other night, there was a lot more early speed than I think I'd seen in Curryheen. Obviously, he's going to need to brush up the boxes, but I think he's more early speed than I initially thought.
Maybe, but the sections aren't exactly telling you that. They're not screaming that. You know what I mean? Did he get away with heat with no early pace in it? I'm not so sure, because like, he looks. If you don't even bother watching the start of the race, just watch from the second bend home. He looks like a monster. Like, he's a proper greyhound, and you have to be excited by him. And maybe the fact that sometimes it's funny too when they pop out and lead like that. They can be encouraged to do it again and get the clear run and get on the money, and maybe next week we'll see him step up. I think it was a 218. If it was it.
He did a 218 with a 1598. Now 1598 of a 218 that's running, like, that's serious.
That's running.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Second two to home was phenomenal. If you ask me, second went to home was phenomenal from him.
No, hell of a dog. Jatara won well, so another winner from the Dennis Lynn. I thought this was more like it from Jatara, and we were a little bit disappointed ourselves. Would have been the Derby, but the penny does have to drop with them. 15.95 to the third bend, Tommy, 28.26. There's a bright future for this fella.
Yeah, good battle. And actually, when he moved across at the first bend, he did so when he had a bit of space. It wasn't just a reckless kind of a dive left kind of an effort. He's a dog that will mature, and he's in good hands to do that. The Derby was just a bit too much too soon. That's all.
Yeah, you've been up and close with this dog, I'm sure, in the past, Damien. I'm sure does Owen still bring you down to sort of run the rule over the dogs?
He just rings me, wants a bit of advice. But if you see in Jatara after the race in Cork, he just got a bit of a spike, and I didn't think he'd be able to get ready for the Derby. So what he done
Yeah.
the Derby was an absolute bonus. No, the night he went out of the Derby, he just something went in the boxes and he started going. And he just went out of it. But look, he's
Yeah.
back in his own age group now. That was a nice performance now to get him back, get a confidence booster for the rest of the competition.
Yeah. Moving on to the third heat or the eighth heat. I don't think we need to talk about this heat, Tommy, do we? It was stunning. It was brilliant early speed by Balnakill Alf, and by all accounts, he seemed to have the money in the bag. The oi-ois were up from the crowd. There was chunks on Balnakill Alf. The laddie da, in contrast, missed the kick. Went around dogs, came between dogs. From the second bend to the line, it was incredible.
What was most pleasing about it was the way he tracked, and the way he didn't. It was kind of smooth. There was no kind of jinking in and out, thinking about what he's doing. It was instinct. He actually, to me, it was a step up in education, because he got a little bit of a bump early, right? Because he kind of his own fault. Maybe took him out slightly. He went in a little bit. He obviously has the preference for the rails, but I just loved the style of it. Like Balnakill Alf, that might give a bit of encouragement to do Ruby Flightline. That Balnakill Alf, I did a 2:13, which is only 5 spots quicker than Flightline. But once the laddie da went by into second place on the third bend, and it was a lovely maneuver, he just galloped the last bend and the rails so well. I mean, it was to catch Balnakill Alf is like it'll be harder as the competition goes on, because Balnakill Alf will break and not come back to any degree whatsoever. It's going to be a bit more difficult as it goes on. But to me, this was a step forward, the education. And also, the one that finished third, Droopy Zelda, who was second down the back, she separated Droopy Flightline and Dale Road Duke in the final of the Dennis Linehan. So I mean, that's no mug that you're going by before you pick up Balnakill Alf. Like there's depth to that race.
Yeah.
That's effectively good enough to be a semi-final of that competition.
Yeah, go ahead, Damien.
The turbo between the just before the third bend was just unreal. Like, he just turned it. That was ultra impressive. That's where the race was won. Like, there was that move there.
Yeah, we've mentioned sires through the day. If you had Linson Buckwood stood, like, you are basing your ad like the laddie da, because I think he's a sensationally fast greyhound. Obviously, we spoke about him at length through the Derby, and he was my sort of outright pick, certainly at the prices, but I just think he's a monster, but probably doesn't have the early speed. Damien, I'd definitely be putting up a bit of 12 or 16 to 1 for this dog for the Puppy Derby. But just give me 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes notice before it goes live, will you?
I'll write
I would suggest he'll be favourite in the morning, Damien, or whenever you get the energy up to price it. Is that yes?
We'll do it. Yeah, I just have wrote down laddie da 16. Right, that's fine. Yeah, move on.
Thanks, Damien. While you're at it, stick Balnakill Alf up at 16 too, okay? Because we didn't give him enough of a mention. He has stunning early speed. Wow, stunning early speed. He probably wants 510 yards rather than 525 yards. My God, he does run for that.
He's not bred. He's not bred for the Derby at all, is he, Tommy? Like
Derby dog next year, for Christ's sake. They'll be saying it's too sharp from next year. Would you go away?
On to Heat 9, Stone Park Sid. He can be a touch frustrating, and the key to his race is getting that run into the back straight. But the manner in which he moved between 2 to 3, Tommy, you couldn't help but be impressed. Like, he left his rivals standing.
You didn't see the scene, but I'm only looking at the form. I didn't see the actual performance, to be honest.
Okay, sorry. I'll tell you what happened. Like, there was sort of a bit of traffic on the opening corner. He slipped through. He was about 2 or 3 lengths third into the back straight. And by the third bend, I think he's 2 or 3 lengths in front. Like, it was just unbelievable. He took off down the back straight. It's one of those where I can't wait to see Teddy on Thursday night and say, by the way, what did Stone Park Sid do at the back straight in, on your clocks? Unbelievably fast dog. Want to make a mention of Ballymac-Marcy. She finished second. She's beaten 7 lengths, but she missed a kick, flew into the opening corner, got done, got a little bit of trouble again at the third bend. But I think she's a bright one for Mike Butler. That was only her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was only her fifth start. She had 28.44 in her previous outing at Shelbourne Park. But you can actually see by her that she's learning she's learning on the go. She daughter Ballymac Cashout, Ballymac Minton. I think there's a bright future there with her. On to Heat 10, Glengar Elvis. Pat has been telling us, Damien, that this dog is better than what he's shown his first 2 or 3 races. Always had high hopes for the Stroopy Smasher litter. He's a nice dog. I still think he's a bit off where he'll end up. I think he's still learning.
Look, it was no harm to see his head in front, because I think I called down to him. He showed me his place there a couple of months ago, and like, he was actually more proud to show me this litter than he was whatever was inside the kennels. He just had so much high aspirations for him, but
yeah,
it wasn't the best of the heats in the night, himself and the Fay panel and his double figures of rest. But look, he done it well, and I can see all I can do is it's just another step forward for him.
Yeah. Tommy, last heat of the night was Groucho's Duke. I got a text message yesterday morning. It took me a while to read it, just given the state I was in following the Derby final. My response was something along the lines of, I believe you're about 105th in the pecking order trying to buy this dog. From what I hear, he's not for sale. I got a text back a little while later going, thanks for that. You're correct. The dog is not for sale. Groucho's Duke, Son of Grange U10, Mystical Luna. This was the dog we saw on debut, 28.23 on debut, 28.19 the other night. Just looks so professional. If he keeps trapping like that, he's going to win a big one at some point. Maybe the Juvenile Derby.
Yeah, well, if you look at the section, like he had a 254, 224, 220, and you're kind of going, well, they're not what we saw in his first race. He did a 206 that, and that's what you kind of gauge on. Because if they can do it, then I know the competition gets stiffer and the Greyhounds are up against gets tougher very quickly. To come back and do a 210, and there's more to come in that sense. Kind of held the middle line a little bit around the first 2 bends. Maybe that's where he wants to be in time.
Yeah.
But like, it's impressive from grade U10, and that's only a fifth run the front of Groucho's Duke's life. I mean, there's a dog that's going to improve a ton.
15.89 to the third bend, a dog having just his fifth start. Like that's really moving. Just a brilliant performance. A great competition. Tom, you want to mention the Casco Derby was on down at Curryheen Park. Of course, we're looking forward to the final. A great prize on offer down there. Mendelssohn is a really nice dog for Tommy O'Donovan. Won the opening heat. Obviously, he's out of Ravenna. A classic winning dam with Tommy, of course, and Ger Hutton, who own it. They won with Epic Hero down in Limerick, of course. The Ledger. Mendelssohn's a nice dog. He probably is that sort of in between dog, be it AAO and AO. He's in that sort of bracket. But a nice performance. But I think the plaudits again go to Jack Tavern Bolt, who is a brother to Balnakill. Looks a real Derby dog for next year. All early speed, Jack Tavern Bolt 28.13, 7.5 lengths, 2 to 5. He'll be a similar price in the final, Tommy.
He will. There were 2 similar displays in the fact that they both showed lovely early pace from top 3 and led all the way. But Jack Tavern Bolt is just at the moment. I mean, you were saying Mendelssohn is stuck between the kind of the grades, and they're just slightly shy. I think Tommy would have no problem saying the same thing about him. He is where he is, and he's a very likable dog. But like, you're up against this
Tommy
is an
ekes
A1.
more out. Tommy ekes more out of that type of dog than most. He's very good with that type of dog. He places them well, and he has them just ready and primed every time they hit the track.
And he'll get them through competitions, a long way deep into competitions too. He's brilliant at that. I just think that the issue is, like, and I do have a problem with things being called derbies when they're A1s. I don't think that should happen. I
tend to agree with you, but that's for another day.
Yeah. But but like, you're up against a proper open class dog in Jack Tavern Bowl. That's the reality. That was just another, like, flawless display of a dog who's going forward at quite a rate of knots. I mean, it's going to be borderline impossible to beat him. I mean, he's on 331, 331, 325, 326. I mean, for a dog of such little experience relatively, I mean, they're all almost Laurel's sectionals.
Yeah, I think that's like, I'm not Graham Holland's race planner, but I would suggest that's where he's going to go. Obviously, they took this in rather than the Juvenile Derby, for which they had Balnakill Alpha's little brother, but the Pillar Syndicate. It's all into the car, lads. We're off to Cork for the final of the Casco, and then into the Laurels.
That's what you'd hope to, because he'd be in addition to the Laurels.
I just
No,
I
go ahead.
hope they have enough gin and tonics at the bar for Noel Byrne down in Cork. I just want to give
I
a
don't
shout
think
out,
they do. I
a
don't think
word
they
of
do. I
warning.
think they're getting the shipment in. I think they're getting the shipment in. It's not the gin you have to worry about. It's the tonic. It takes up a lot more space. The Dave Collins Munster Memorial Munster Oaks was on at Waterford the other evening. Chelm's Ramona coming back to form. Great to see. She won the Brownstown Tango Newbridge Track Supporters Open and raced at Newbridge earlier in the year. It's a competition that throws up some really, really fast ones through the years, including a certain Susie Sapphire. She went out of it early, just going to show. Chelm's Ramona won the other evening at 28:49, beating Easy Razzle by 3 parts of length. Easy Razzle, Tommy, we know how good she is. She needs to brush up on her boxing, but if she does find her trapping boots, I think she's really going to be top class. But Chelm's Ramona, good to see her coming back to winning ways after, I think she was given a bit of a break after the stake in Newbridge.
Yeah, there's kind of been bumping at the first, but it was a nice performance out of Trap Six because she didn't break either. She actually ran very well to win. But the runner up, Easy Razzle has pace in abundance. I mean, to be where she was in that race and in among the trouble, and then to show the pace she did to be beaten very little in the end, it was a huge display.
Yeah, just find those trapping boots and she's going to be serious.
Uh,
But of course, the
the problem
plaudits on.
is
Go ahead.
she. The problem is she probably never will. I mean, if you know what I mean, at
Yeah.
this stage, it'll be unlikely.
Yeah, she's still relatively young. Like she's only in August. You know what I mean? Now she's only had she has what 17 races according to the card. Role model though Damien. Tell us about this one. She's a daughter Pastana Nocturna Winks. I don't know if she ever raced as Nocturna Lynx, but she did 28:26 in the other heat. She has a couple of nice runs around Shelbourne Park, and she had a good run in Galway. Owen has her now 28:26. 304 sectional. She's clearly going the right way.
Yeah, she clearly going right. I know he was kind of he liked her from very many got her. He just thought she was just the one that he thought the good one to do everything right, and she just, but look, I didn't think she'd do that sort of a run this soon, but look, what trap is a trap draw? What do you know? What trap is it?
I'll just open it up here and see. The trap draw is there, all right. She is in the final. She is in. She's after getting the outside box. In trap six role model, but she's on the outside of Easy Razzle, Chance Ramona, one Clon Morales, two Glengar Martha, and three Montana Fantasy. So I suppose the trap draw is throwing the final wide open. But yeah, role model. If she does a 304, she might get away from trap six.
Yeah, because she put it up to Balnakill. Was it Balnakill Alf in Shelbourne? Was it 2 or 3 weeks go early? Like did she do a two?
She did a 203 that night against
203
Bannickalash. She
that,
showed
like
tremendous early speed that night.
like
Yeah.
that's enough to put you in the mix bang going to the corner every race. No, the trap draw is probably going to be against her. She's going to have to do it. She have to do it for sure. I'm sure he'll ring me during the week and I can
looking for a bit of advice.
Maybe not today. Maybe not today.
On the semi-final sectional, she's 8 spots faster than her nearest fastest rival. So that just might her get around her in front. I wouldn't be just missing her on the strength of the trap draw. And she is a middle seed. Like it's not as if she's an inside seed. It just so happens that there are 3 middle seeds in the race. So it's turned into a good competition down there. Anything else we need to talk about, gentlemen? Any other business before I say good night?
No, I don't think she's
Yeah,
badly
I'm going
drawn in
ringing.
that
I
final.
think.
You don't think she's badly drawn, Tommy? No, she should really lead Easy Razzle. Easy Razzle's last 2 sectionals, 3:26 and 3:38. Like she can obviously do better. She's 2:10 in Shelbourne Park, 2:11 in Shelbourne Park, but she might be, she might be needing to certainly do 3:10 or so. So they need to improve considerably to hold up role model in the early yards. I think we've spoken for long enough, gentlemen. A great derby once again, Tommy.
Look at I say I have it down to like there are a lot of exceptional greyhounds in the country, or greyhounds of exceptional ability, but there aren't too many trainers who can get that exceptional ability out of them. To me, this is as much about the training performance as the greyhound itself. I think Jennifer O'Donnell, hats off to her.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see more of the other Kobe. I think his owners are very much sporting. I don't think they fancy having a stud dog. So I'm hoping and certain we'll see the other Kobe again in the future. I'm not sure we can say the same about Born Warrior. More on that in the future. Damien, the other Kobe, just a great winner on the night.
Oh, look, I echo everything Tommy said there. The training performance, everything. They were spot everything the whole throughout the derby. They were Jennifer done everything spot on. But this derby thing had everything. Like the real story is Dora Kobe. But then you have the likes of Mr. Chelm coming back. Like that's a story in itself. That's a good thing in itself. We seen the Kildare coming back. Then you have your 365s of just being thrown in last second in the derby just for the crack. finishing fourth. Like it's, and then carpool Derby Oakie. We have to give that a shout out. Like, you know what I mean?
I got a lift to Shelbourne on Saturday night with Robert Catterson, and for a split second I thought, and I went, no, I'm a
No.
grown man.
Imagine imagine if the laddie dad got to find the Derby. We're going to be scratching our heads.
Oh la dee da. The Fugees, was it? What was I going to say to you, Damien? Your bonus is well and truly sorted for February. Well done. Don't forget a bit of 16-1 there about the laddie Dan. Stick in Balnakill Elf while you're at it. Gentlemen, my pleasure as always. My thanks to the exile dub Tommy Lyons. Said to me one day in a betting shop, fella behind the counter said to him, "Oh, the exile dub. It's following you around, following you around. You have to come back to the mean streets of Temple Oak sooner rather than later, Tommy." Damien, go off now and have some more carbs in the afternoon. Before we leave you, I've just been told that check out all the various social media channels. There's a wonderful picture sent through from Jennifer O'Donnell of her two Derby champions, brothers, side by side. We never really alluded to it or what an achievement it was. It's just incredible. Like, not only were they trained by the same woman and reared by the same woman, but of course, she's also the breeder. So a remarkable feat. And check out that picture on the various social media channels, be it Shelbourne Park or I'm not sure, GRI Facebook page. But no, wonderful to see the two boys side by side. Bragging rights this week, I suppose, goes to the other Kobe due to the fact that, he's the more recent one, but a tremendous Derby champion, and we will look back on him with fond memories. And I hope we see him again in the very near future. Who knows? He could be a winner again at the Winter Racing Festival as he was last year, when razor sharp over the 525-yard trip. But that's it from us on Talking Dogs on a Monday. Lots to reflect on. Damien's off to get some more carbs. I think I'm still in that point as well. Some more carbs for me now for lunch. By the time you're watching this, myself and Damien could well be tucked up in bed. But that's it from us on this Talking Dogs on a Monday. Good evening, good luck. God bless.